was sort of a hobby of mine growing up. And I look back in her Yeshiva of Flatbush early elementary school yearbook, as Rabbi Don was so in tune to check her high schools, and lo and behold, what we saw there, her favorite saying, "Stop, Michael! Leave me alone!" Oh, man. Rings so clear. It's so similar to my little David and Amy, who are almost that age now. There's some pictures that look a little similar. And now that I see them, and I remember my childhood with Mariel, it's so clear. Of course, every time I teased her, it's to show my affection, to show how much I love Mariel. That's how I expressed it growing up. And that's how siblings tend to express their love for their younger siblings. And because she always got so aggravated, I knew that she loved it, and that she only wanted more. Years later, we had a very different experience in our relationship. When Sarah and I moved back from Boston, we moved straight to Deal that summer, and we couldn't find a place in the city that year, so we decided just to stay in Deal the entire year. Coincidentally, it was also the same year that Mariel decided to attend Elon High School in Deal. And I remember so clearly that we just had our own son, David, and were introduced to the world of parenting at a relatively young age ourselves. And here we were with a 17-year-old daughter, pretty much, that we had to tackle. And of course, that was a pretty interesting challenge in and of itself. And I remember what a confusing year it was for all of us. Sarah and I getting acclimated to being our own family unit, independent of our parents. And at the same time, it was such a pivotal year for Mariel, in that what resulted from her year at Elon set the framework for the rest of her life. And it's so clear how difficult it was at the time. I didn't know how to communicate with Mariel that year. I didn't know whether I should become the disciplinarian, just a friend, do nothing. And I didn't want to drive her away by telling her what to do and what not to do. And what I ended up doing was to actually communicate on a close level with Mariel only through my wife Sarah, so that I was able to keep that distance and monitor her, but not as the disciplinarian. And unfortunately, when I look back now at our relationship, in those few years subsequent, I noticed that it also, unfortunately, gave more distance to my relationship with Mariel. And it was difficult for me because I loved her so much, on the one hand, but I was so worried about her. I was worried about what choices she would make. Would she decide to get married and raise a family right away? Would she go off to college? Would she start working? Or my most devastating fear of all in those few years is that she would just simply coast through life. Being what some people refer to as a privileged life, and someone who has access to everything, such love from our parents and such a strong support network. she could have easily just done nothing and just enjoyed everything and not become anything aside from that. And without any of my help directly, you all heard what, what she was, in fact, able to do. So, it was only recently, about a year ago or so, where this tough love stance that I had taken for so many years, and I was able to back off of that. And I was really starting to get so much closer to my sister, closer than I had ever been before. I saw her this past year, the happiest that she had ever been her entire life. She was living her dream. My most happy thought that I can think of, now that I can't speak to her again, is that I did get the chance to tell her how proud I was of her. She had done so much, touched so many people, and I think it was important for Mariel to hear that from me, her older sibling, and it was more important for me to express it to Mariel, because it totally bridged the gap that we'd had those few years in between. Just a few weeks ago, Mariel was over our house, just watching a movie, sitting down on the couch, and we wanted to stretch out a little bit, and I began to, put my feet on her lap or whatever, and she was like, trying to get them off, and I started to tickle her with my feet, and somehow or other, it got into one of our tickling matches, the same tickling matches that we had when we were that age. And we laughed till we cried because it was so painful to laugh. And just then, I felt my relationship with Mariel come full circle. We ended off our relationship the way that we began it. And through coming full circle, I've learned such a strong message